So today, we're going to be talking about a newly formed star cluster that researchers are exploring that'll really help them understand the properties of a star cluster as well as how they form. Afterwards, in the Sky Report, we're going to be talking a lot about a lot of stellar phenomena that's going to be in the night sky for the next 3 days, including sightings of Mercury, Mars, and an open star cluster that will be in the night sky. And finally, we're going to be talking about arguably the most biggest story that's been in astronomy for the past few days, especially what happened last Saturday with NASA, and it's going in the mainstream media. But we're going to be talking about the stranded astronauts in space. Instead of talking about the business side of how Boeing is kind of in decline, where SpaceX, I guess, is on the rise since they're not using SpaceX, we're going to talk about what really happened and the scenario that they were faced in that kind of led to these series of events. But anyways, all of that and more will be talked about. This is Interstellar Insights. Alright guys, so starting off this episode, we're going to be talking about a newly formed star cluster that was discovered that researchers are analyzing to help us understand properties of them. So to start off, kind of the location of the star cluster, it's in this molecular cloud that researchers are analyzing called, and this is a really weird name, like this arguably might be like the weirdest name I said, but I kid you not, this molecular cloud is called G148.24 plus 0.41. I'll read that again because it's just baffling. G148.24 plus 0.41. And yes, there is an actual plus symbol in that name. So that is just, I don't understand like the naming of stuff. Like, just make some universal system that'll make it really easy. But like, that is the weirdest thing I have heard of for a celestial object name. So I don't know why didn't they just add it up to like instead of calling it that, just call it like G148.65. That's the 0.41 added to it, but obviously they just want to make it harder. But anyways, I'm really getting off topic with the name. Anyways, what we know about this molecular cloud is that it is 11,000 light years away, with the radius of this molecular cloud spanning 84.7 light years. So 84.7 light years, that's the amount of time it takes to get from one end of the molecular cloud to to the center of the molecular cloud. This molecular cloud has a combined mass of 100,000 solar masses, so like 100,000 suns. And the dust temperature of the dust in that region is at 14.5 kelvins on average. Now, we're going to be talking about that mainly because this is where this new star cluster was discovered, but there is this region, if we look at kind of the geometry, in the central regions of G148.24 plus 0.41. Yes, I read it all out. There's this region designated C1. Like I said, this is in the central area of the molecular cloud, but this is where our newly discovered star cluster is located. So, research on this star cluster, which has been named, thank God, FSR 665. I still don't know what FSR means, but it is a lot nicer than saying G and then some weird equation. Anyways, I need to stop getting on the nerves and naming. But anyways, FSR 665. That was discovered, and then most of the research is being conducted by the Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad, India. And the goal of this research, of course, like I said earlier and in the intro, is to discover the properties of the star cluster, and hopefully it'll give us an insight as to how star clusters function. So we're going to stop right there. Go into a little bit of, I guess, an impromptu astronomy lesson. So we talked about star clusters, and of course we know that star clusters form when there's a group of stars, and they kind of bound together by their own gravity, and they just kind of sustain each other. Well, not sustain each other in terms of fuel, but in terms of gravity. Now, we're going to go into some statistics of this newly discovered star cluster. So this star cluster is estimated to be 500,000 years old. Now, I know what you're thinking, Michael. 500,000 years old. Humanity, modern civilization hasn't been around for at least, 10% of that time. Well, in terms of celestial objects and, stars and, of course, star clusters here, 500,000 years old, when we're talking in those terms, is pretty young. So, think of it kind of like a toddler star cluster, if you will, with that being said. But anyways, the mass of FSR 665 is 180 solar masses. So imagine 180 stars, and then they make up 180 of those suns make up a part of 100,000 additional suns, which then makes up the molecular cloud that we're seeing. So, yeah, that is, those are some of the statistics. I had a weird stutter here. Like I said, those are some of the statistics. We're going to go into a little bit more. So, the star formation efficiency, which is basically the efficiency of how fast, essentially, a star cluster can use the dust in its region to basically create new stars. And so if the efficiency rating is lower, that means that the dust is generally used up by other stars during creation. So from calculations, FSR 665 was calculated to have a star formation efficiency of 19%, which is pretty slow. And to show you how slow that is, that means that 360 solar masses, or think of it like 360 suns, are produced by the star cluster every 1 million years. So if this star cluster wanted to produce the amount of stars, which like we said is 100,000 to make up the molecular cloud, it would take like 1 billion years, I would say. Just kind of doing the math from there, because if it's 10 million, that's 3,600. 100,000 is 360. Yeah, so about, actually no, it's more like 100, maybe 70 million years. But still, point is, if we compare it to the amount of time it would actually take, it's pretty slow. So yeah, that is the new young star cluster that's been discovered, that we've been, or I guess astronomers, especially in the physical research laboratory in India, have been studying. So yeah, who knows? Maybe this will open our eyes up to the way star clusters work and stuff. So yeah, with that being said, let's go move over to this week's Sky Report. Alright guys, so let's get into this week's Sky Report for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Of course, that's the 4th, 5th, and 6th of this week. And of course, reminder that all these times are in lovely Eastern Daylight Time. So if you live like in St. Louis, or you just happen to live in the Panhandle of Florida, you'll have to do the conversions yourself, figure it out. All my East Coast homies, they're in good shape. So anyways, of course, we're talking about Wednesday. So it's today, September the 4th. At 11 p.m., Mercury will reach its greatest point of western elongation, where it will be 18 degrees from the sun. And in the following weeks, we'll notice that Mercury will begin to sink down below the horizon until it is out of view for us to see. So elongation is just a fancy term for the angular distance from the sun to a planet from our view here on Earth. So that's kind of the furthest point Mercury is going to be from the sun. Wait, is this... Hold up. Western elongation. Is that supposed to be AM? Hold on. we have a little bit of fact checking to do quickly. It happens. Okay, wait. No, never mind. Makes sense. It's in the late. It's up late. It's before sunrise, obviously, at 11 p.m. It's very dark at that time, because that is before when September 5th starts at that following midnight. But anyways, yeah, as I was saying, elongation is the angular distance between a planet and the sun from where we see it on Earth. And just to kind of explain it, Mercury in the following weeks will get closer to the sun, but it's also going to sink in the horizon, to at which point we just won't be able to see it until it eventually comes back up. But that's in the following weeks, so I'll probably track it or something like that. But that's tonight, September 4th. Tomorrow, September 5th, Thursday. In the early morning, Mars is going to be in the early sky. It's going to be nearing the border of Taurus and Gemini. And if you want to find it, it's going to be standing less than 1 degree from a 4th magnitude Geminorum, the star. And Mars itself is going to be shining at a very dim magnitude of 0.7. So, actually, no, that's very bright. I don't know. I'm getting my scales mixed up. It's been a long day for me. Anyways, near this Mars, who's clinging to Geminorum and Taurus and Gemini, there's going to be an open star cluster, which is called M35. Thank God for the naming. M35 is going to be glowing at a 5th magnitude, and it's going to be spanning 28 arc minutes across the horizon. Of course, arc minutes is just the kind of angular distance from our vision in the night sky, since we are on an angle because of the tilted axis. But again, that later. But if you want to find M35 is going to be 1.5 degrees northeast of Geminorum in the night sky. I think that I'm pronouncing that right. Sounds about right. But anyways, later in the day, at 10:54 a.m., the moon will reach apogee, which is apogee just basically means that is the furthest the moon is ever going to be from the planet, meaning that the moon will be sitting 252,408 miles from us. And since I live in America, we use miles. And even though there's obviously more people and more countries that use metric, convert it to metric. Do that yourself. I'm not babysitting you over that, or overseeing you, not babysitting. Okay, but yeah, you guys get the point. So that is what's happening tomorrow night, Thursday. Friday at 1 p.m., the moon will pass 0.5 degrees north of Spica, and immediately after sunset, Venus will be very, very visible. It'll be shining at a very, very bright magnitude of negative 3.9. So that's that's pretty much all that's happening on Friday. Let's go get into some times for sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset, and the moon phase, which is consistent for the week. It's changing slowly, but it's generally the same. Tonight, sunset's going to happen at 7:26 p.m. Moonrise happened earlier today at 7:55 a.m. and moonset's going to be at 8:12 p.m. So that is today. Tomorrow, the 5th of September on Thursday, sunrise is going to be at 6:32 a.m. Sunset's going to be at 7:24 p.m. Moonrise is going to be at 8:54 a.m. and the moon set's going to be at 8:31 p.m. And so yeah, that is Thursday, September the 5th. September the 6th, sunrise is going to be at 6:33 a.m. Sunset's going to be at 7:23 p.m. Moonrise is going to be 9:54 a.m. and moonset's going to be at 8:51 p.m. So yeah, that is the times for sorry, my chair is being silly. Those are the times for sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset for Friday, September the 6th. And just as a reminder, no, not a reminder. Never mind. You guys don't know the moon phase. The moon phase, which is not changing this week. There's no like full or new moons. Is going to be waxing crescent. So that is the moon phase when you take a look at the moon in tonight when you are out. But yeah, that is the sky report for this week. Let's go move on to our next segment. All right, guys, let's move into our last big section of this episode of Interstellar Insights. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the biggest news story regarding astronomy and space. It's been around for a while. I'm sure you've heard of it. But we're going to be talking about the 2 astronauts that were stranded in space. And I know mainstream media and stuff, they're covering kind of more the business aspect. Because like, Boeing Starliner was a piece of garbage, and like they've had these other issues, so we should not invest in Boeing, and so stuff like that's happening, which they've been kind of covering on instead of more of what like actually happened. So yeah, I'm gonna tell about like what happened. It's kind of like a pretty much an Apollo 13 scenario where there's some issues, but I would just say, starting off the bat, the crew are not like in life-threatening danger. Like basically what this means, since NASA will not use the Starliner, is it just means that they're going to just get back to Earth in February. That's literally it. They're not in danger. They're on the ISS. Of course, the ISS is well stocked with food, and of course, there's definitely resupply trips going on to keep the crew up there, including these 2 astronauts, alive and stuff. But yeah, let's get into the like actual details. So the issue with the Starliner really started with the trial. It was basically the first flight for Starliner to see if it was, a viable capsule to carry astronauts to and from space. But this really started on June 5th when it was actually first flown. It was flown by Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams, who are veteran Navy pilots from the U.S. Navy. They did this with NASA. So the initial mission was that they were going to be basically testing for the first time Boeing Starliner capsule and flying that up to the ISS to see if the Starliner could fit NASA's needs. I'm assuming Starliner is reusable, something like that. Because, at this point, for these big aerospace companies like SpaceX, Boeing, it's all about getting a cheap, reusable rocket so we can transport stuff easier to space and, get stuff. But anyways, these 2 astronauts, they managed to get to the ISS fine, but once they got to the ISS, they discovered that there are problems with Starliner, with the capsule, due to helium leaks and thruster failures, which led them to conduct tests. So I'm just going to say these tests took like a really long time, which delayed the mission even more. So now, instead of it being 8 days, it was going to be a couple weeks. So this set back the mission and their time to get back to Earth if they wanted to. Because to be honest, if this happened to me, I'd be pretty happy. You got to be in space. But anyways, as I was saying, these tests took a lot of time. So Starliner, they're trying to see if it was safe, make sure that they were safe, but it was not because the execs last Saturday, the executives at NASA decided that the Starliner was not safe amid protests from Boeing claiming that it was safe, which is a burn on Boeing. Basically, they said that the astronauts are going to get a ride on the SpaceX Crew 9 Dragon mission up to the ISS, which will happen in February 2025. So it was originally an 8-day mission in June, and then they got delayed because of all these tests for Starliners, and now NASA's delaying it by a couple of months because of Starliner being unsafe. And I've heard right now there's like weird, strange noises that they are reporting coming from Starliner. So yeah, it seems like Boeing is kind of in a decline because this is embarrassing for them. They tried their best to try and get NASA to let them use Starliner to get back to Earth, but of course NASA said no and kind of kicked the curb on them, and they're going to SpaceX. But yeah, this is kind of going a little bit towards a business kind of perspective. This is pretty bad for Boeing because Boeing's kind of under scrutiny because they've had a lot of incidents with their planes, and now Starliner, like the Alaska Airlines flight in January, where like the door just flew off, and like everyone they basically completed the flight with like the door off, but like no one could do anything because if they like unbuckle their seatbelt or whatever, they just get sucked out of the plane. Like stuff like that. That's what's going to get the investors that are investing in Boeing to stop investing. So this is pretty bad for Boeing. So honestly, if you ask me, I think they should just get their act together and stuff. But yeah, that is pretty much the story of the stranded astronauts in space and what their original mission was and why it dragged out for so long and stuff. So yeah, with that being said, let's go move on, do some astronomy trivia. Alright guys, so let's go move into this week's edition of astronomy trivia. So before I read the question to last week's, or not the question, before I read the answer to last week's question, that's what I want to do. Before I read this week's question, I'm going to read the answer from last week's question that I put out on the poll on YouTube and Spotify. And basically the answer, first off, the question was, who discovered Pluto? And the answer to that was Clyde Tombaugh. So Clyde Tombaugh was this American astronomer who just so happened to discover Pluto in 1930 at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Initially at the time, Pluto was classified as a planet until 2004, where it was reclassified as a dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union. I believe it's them that are in charge. But yeah, Clyde Tombaugh is the answer. And yeah, he discovered Pluto in 1930. But let's go move on to this week's question. And this week's question is, I'm going to read this like 2 times. Where did NASA's Dawn mission fly to? Okay, so the question is, where did NASA's Dawn mission fly to? Alright, I'll put out a poll on YouTube and a poll on Spotify for the respective viewers, and you guys can answer there to see, what you think it is. So, yeah, that's this week's edition of Astronomy Trivia. Let's go close out this episode of Interstellar Insights. Alright, guys. So we're going to close out this episode of Interstellar Insights shortly. So, before I go, just want to say I'm getting adjusted into a new schedule, especially since school is now started for me in high school. So, I'll have to figure out a way to balance time for the podcast and time for school. So, yeah, I'm going to keep the schedule normal as it is, regular song and dance. There should be another podcast next week, but if for some reason school just outweighs this podcast, I will notify everyone that listens, so you know what to expect. So yeah, that's all I got to say. So if you like this episode of Interstellar Insights, hit that like button and subscribe. It really does mean a lot to subscribe to me, help support me, and if we get plenty of followers, we can develop better content, maybe a new segment or two, make this show run a little bit longer each week, and yeah, that's all I've got to say. So this is Michael signing off.